Okay, so there's the petcock there, and you can probably see that there's no fuel in that line. I've just had it running, and that that fuel hose there, that's completely empty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it on. You see that there's no fuel coming through. You remember that the backfiring in the previous videos was a little bit like running out of fuel, the way that a bike behaves and carries on and backfires and stutters. Well, that's what happens when it's running out of fuel. There's no fuel there in the fuel line. I've just turned it on. What I'll do now is I'll start it up, and we'll see that hardly any fuel gets through. And that fuel line is empty, and that's why it ran out of that's why it conked out, that's why it stopped. So it appears we've got some type of petcock or carburetor fuel valve problem. It's an intermittent problem, and that's why it's been so hard to find. What I'll do now is I'll turn it on to reserve. There we go. Fuel just ran in. So now we've got fuel to the carburetor, and I'll try and start it up again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, there it is. There's the proof that the problem with this bike all along, and the Sportster problem series, has been a faulty petcock or fuel tap. Now I'll try and start it again, but this time not on reserve, but just on the normal fuel tap on location, where it wasn't letting fuel through before, and we'll see how it goes. So there it was, all the proof we need. It ran dry with the fuel tap on. Now I'll turn it on to reserve, and we'll see fuel flow through the tube there. So turning it on, and there we have it, instant fuel. Well, a faulty fuel tap. Doesn't work on the on position, but works on the reserve position. Okay, just for confirmation, we'll do that test again. We'll start it up with the fuel tap on the on position. We'll see that it runs dry, and then we'll turn it on to reserve and we'll see fuel flow through the hose. Okay, the fuel tap at the moment is on the reserve position. Okay, so this time we see that when it's on the reserve position, we don't get fuel flow anymore. Only partial fuel flow. So that's reserve, this is on, there's no difference, and off. When I move the hose, a little bit of air goes through to there. So I'll turn it on now. On and reserve. So yeah, I didn't get the confirmation I needed. That second test there, when I was on reserve, I wasn't getting full fuel flow when the engine was on. So I'll take the petcock off the tank now. Okay, so now with the tank off the bike, the fuel switch is in the off position. I'll turn it to on, which is there, and then onto reserve. So that's on, and now to reserve. On and off. Okay, so I know the tank's clean. The petcock seems to be working okay. Now why it ran out of fuel before, I've got no idea. Okay, so I'll keep on going. What I'll do now is I'll connect the hose and turn the fuel tap on to on. See if we get fuel flow. Okay, so connecting the tap now. Or the hose, sorry, connecting the hose, and now it's got fuel from there down, no fuel here, so I'll turn it to the on position now, and nothing. I'll straighten the bike up, level it out. Makes no difference. I'll now put the fuel tap onto the on position. On position, no difference. No fuel flow. Now I'll start the bike to see if I lose fuel from here down or gain fuel. So what happened in that test was the fuel tap was on the on position. I didn't get any fuel flow, in fact it ran out completely of fuel. when I put it onto the reserve position, the fuel hose filled up with fuel. So we need fuel flow when the tap's on the on position as well as the reserve position. That's okay, that's just Teflon. There's a rubber gasket, and the rubber gasket is cracked. So there's no obstruction here, passes into the tank. So that's the petcock, or the fuel tap, I prefer to call it. And it's got some Teflon from a video. You'll find a video where I previously took this fuel tap off. This rubber gasket shouldn't make any difference to the way the engine runs. It's just a seal to seal this onto the part of it there. So we'll see that the fuel tap's fine when I blow through it. When it's off, nothing goes through, and I can blow air through it when it's on the on position and reserve. So that's on off. That's on. The next one is reserve. So I'll demonstrate that the fuel switch is good. That's the normal fuel flow there, so it's off now. I'll turn it on. Now I'll turn it on to the reserve. That's an opposite thread. That's interesting. I can't blow any air through there because the fuel bowl will have to rise to let the fuel in. That seems to have a good seal. Okay, so the fuel hose is back on the bike, and I'll turn on the fuel tap now, and it's still empty. Turn on the reserve, and empty. Nothing coming through. Okay, so maybe there's not enough fuel in the fuel tank. Well, it's on reserve. I'll stand the bike up, and there's just nothing there. So, you know, maybe there's something I don't understand and I'm missing something, but call me old-fashioned, but I think that if there's fuel in the fuel tank, then that hose should really fill up with fuel. As we can hear, there's a fair amount of fuel in there. Okay, on the full tank, reserve. Nothing.